A very warm welcome to the ninth recitation, which is about JavaScript loops and arrays. So the purpose of this recitation is to practice with JavaScript programs that involve loops and arrays. Now, this recitation is related to the content on chapter 20 of the Fluency textbook. But before we start, I would just like to give a gentle reminder to fill the quiz forms in order to be marked for attendance, sorry. And also please be sure to mention the honor code before submitting any assignment. You can find the files related to the recitations on Canvas under the Files tab, under Recitation Information, under my name, Jayashree Damala. You can find the recitation folders for the different topics and the files along with the presentation. So we will be creating functions which use the concept of arrays and loops. We will be having two arrays. One will be the names of the people and other will be the number of books they own. And then we will be using these arrays and also create functions so that some statements are performed on these arrays and we get an output. So the functions that we will be creating will be as follows. We will be traversing the books owned in order, traversing names in order, then traversing books owned in reverse order, traversing names in the array, traversing names in the reverse order, then the average of the books owned in the array, the largest number of books owned, and a bar graph to display the books owned by each person. So now there is a template on Canvas which can be found under the Files tab, under Recitation Information, under my name, and in the Recitation 9 folder. So you can just download the template and then start coding along with it. Note that it's just a template, so it will not be doing much. And eventually throughout the recitation, we will be incrementally developing the code step by step. But for the recitation, I will be coding it from scratch and not using the template, because this way there will be no break while we code, and you will also understand how to code it from scratch from the start to the end. So the first thing that we are going to do is create two arrays, one for the names and other for the number of books owned. And then once we create these two arrays, we are going to write the code for functions and then accordingly go so on and so forth. So let's get started with the coding. Everyone can, open their text editors and code with me, along with me, because that way you'll understand better. So what we're going to do is first just write a basic template, which will have the HTML tag, the head tags, and the other tags. We'll add some comments to guide us what we're going to do. And then we will start filling in the code. So let's get started. First, let's just give the doc type as HTML. Then we will have the HTML tag, which will have the head tag. And inside the head tag, we will have the meta char set, where we will write UTF-8, which is the character set. Then after that, we can give a title also. Let me give it a title, arrays and loops, because that's what we're doing in this code. So this is done. Then after the head tag, we'll have the body tag. Now inside the body tag, let's just give a few headings and explain what it is. So let me give an H1 heading which says array task. Okay. And then let's one thing, let's give another heading H4 which says people and the number of books they own. Okay, so let's just see how this website looks, and you can see array task and it's given people and the number of books they own. Now after this, obviously we will have the script tag. Okay, so what we'll do is let's just write the comments of what functions we'll have to write and then fill in the code. So let's say we will start off by we will need, I'm just writing the comments. So remember, when you want to write the comments, you can just do double slashes. So I think the first thing, we're going to write a function that prints the array values in order. Okay, this will be the first function we write. Then we'll move on to writing another function which prints the array values in reverse order. Then we are going to go and the next function that we'll write will find and return the average of the array values. Okay, then the next function that we will write will find and return the index of the largest element in the array. Okay, then what we're going to do is, then the next function that we will write will create array of names. Then the next function that we will write will create an array of 2-digit integers. So create an array of 2-digit integers. Then the next function that we will write will traverse. So yeah, I think that's about the functions that we will have to create. Now after that, we have to display our output also. For so displaying the output, we will just write the comments like that is traverse array in order. The output for that will be here. This is for the names array. Okay, in order. This could be for the names array or the number array. Then we need to write another one where we have to traverse array in order for the other array. Then again we have to traverse array in reverse order, and this has to be done 2 times because we have 2 arrays. So we will traverse array in reverse order. Then we also have to find the average of array value. So we will print the output over here, finding average of array values. Then the next thing that we have to display is finding the largest number and person who has that number, right? And then the last thing that we want to display would be the bar graph. So it will be printing bar graph by values in number array. Okay, I think that is about it. So we have functions. These are the functions that we'll have to create to do the following, and the others are just displaying of the output, that is calling the functions and displaying the output. So I said that the first thing that we're going to do is we have to create 2 arrays. Okay, so you can see create array of names and create an array of 2-digit integers. So let's create the array of names first. Now the syntax to do this is as follows. You will first need to declare a variable which will be the name of the array, and then you have to write new space array where A is capital, and then pass the elements that you need in the array inside circular brackets, and if it is a string, then it should be inside the quotes. So now we have to create an array of names. So let's see how to do that. I will write the keyword var, and then I will give the array a name called names. Okay, then I have to use the keyword new array where A is capital. Okay, and then circular brackets. Inside these circular brackets, I am going to pass the values that I need in the array. So here, because I need names and they are strings, it should be inside the quotes. So let me just write some random names. Okay, so I've written Joey, Mary, Tom, then Mark, Dave, Eric, Jen, Andrew, then Dana, and then Paul. And don't forget the semicolon. Okay, so this is how you create an array. Again, to repeat, you use the variable var, then you give the array name, and then if you use this keyword which says new array and the A is capital, and inside circular brackets you have to pass the values. So this is how you can create an array of names. Now the next thing that we want to do is create an array of 2-digit numbers. So here we'll use a different concept. Instead of manually typing all the numbers, we will try to use the concept of loop. Now loop is where you give it a condition and then it goes again and again, it performs the same function. Okay, so now here what we will do is, like before, we have a variable var. Okay, we have to write the keyword var and give it a name. Suppose I'll give the array name as ARR, and I will write new array, and inside of that 10. Now what this means is that I am creating an empty array which is named as ARR, and it will have 10 elements in it. Now what I will do is I will use the concept of a loop, and I will try to loop 10 times and add the values in the array. So when you have to use a loop, you will use the keyword for. Now what you'll write is for, then circular brackets. You have to write the start, the end, and how it will increment the step. Okay, so you will have the for, and you will say variable I, it should start from 0, and it should go on till what end? It should be less than 10. And every time it goes in the loop, it should increase by one number. Okay, what this means is that the variable I will start at value 0. Then there will be an I plus plus, that is I is equal to I plus 1. It will go one step further, so I will become 1. Then again it will go I plus plus, and then it will become 2, then 3, 4, so on and so forth until the value of I is less than 10. Okay, so here we have for variable I equal to 0. Okay, there is a mistake that I've done. Instead of commas, you need semicolon here. So don't forget, you need to mention semicolon. So now I have the circular brackets, and I have the curly brackets. Now inside the curly brackets, I will write a formula which will calculate what value should be put in the array. So you can have any random formula that you want to put. I want the numbers to be between 10 and 99. So because we want 2-digit arrays, so I can just use the mat.random function and multiply it by 10 and add it to, multiply it by 90 and add it to 10. So this way I can make sure that the numbers are between 10 and 99. And because I don't want it to get extended a lot, so I will use the mat.floor function to round it off. So I can write mat.floor, then mat.random into 90 plus 10. Okay, this will ensure that the numbers are between the 10 and 99 range. Okay, so now every time we have so this loop is going to run for 10 times, obviously, and every time we get this value of array and the random number, we want to put it in the array. So what we are going to do is we have to do indexing. We'll say array at the ith position, put this number rand. Okay, so now what happens is when I equal to 0, this rand value will be generated, and in array of the 0th position, the rand value will go. So accordingly, this will happen 10 times, and finally the array is going to be filled. So we saw two ways of creating arrays. Let me just repeat it once more. The first is when you create the array of names, okay, you have to write the keyword var, then names equal to new array, and then pass in the values that you want. Then the next part was creating an array of 2-digit numbers, where you again use the keyword var, give the array name, and say that you want the array to have 10 elements, and then you use the concept of looping and go loop it the number of times you want and put the values inside the array. So let's see, we have completed how to create the arrays. Now we had to create 2 arrays and we have done that successfully. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to write a function so that it prints the array. Okay. Now what will happen is when you want to write a function of printing the array, you again have to use the concept of loop, because you have many elements in the array and you want to go through each element and make sure that it is printed. So again, the concept of loops is going to be used. So let's see how that will be done. See, we have written over here prints the array values in order. Okay, so let's write the function for that. So as we remember, whenever we want to write function, we use the keyword function, then we write the function name. So I will give it a function name, print array, and we have to pass arguments. So the argument that we're going to pass is going to be an array. Let's say it is called as A. Okay, now we have to go through the entire array, that is iterate through it, loop through it. Okay, so again we will use a for loop which will have a start, end, and step size given, and then we will print it. So we will write the for loop, then we will create a variable I which starts from 0, then semicolon, then I is less than, it has to go less than the length of the array. So a dot length will give the length of the array, and then I plus plus, it should increment 1 by 1. And then what it will do inside of this would be, we want it to display it, right? So we can write document dot write, because remember, whenever we want to display anything, we write document dot write, and then print the ith value of the array, and then a space, and we put a semicolon. And then we can write document dot write and then we can write the break code twice, just so the values that are printed are one after the other. Okay, and we write a semicolon. Now this is how you can print the array values in an order. Okay, now what we have to do next is, now we have created the array and we have also written the function to print the array. But for us to be able to see the output, we need to call the function also. Okay, so now we are going to call the function array and we will see how that works. So let's go down, let's see traverse array in order. Okay, so now let's try to call the function over here. Okay, so we will try to traverse the numbers array first. Let's see. So we can write document dot write traversing books owned in order. Okay, and let's just give it a line break, and don't forget the semicolon. And then I will call the function print array and give it an argument ARR, which is our name of the array. Okay, now let's try running let's see if we get the output. And if you can see, we have traversing books owned in order and we have the numbers, and if you count it, it is 10. Okay, but if I refresh the page again and again, you will notice that we keep getting different values. Now the reason that this happens is, if you remember, we use the mat.random function, right? So every time we refresh the page, every time we will have new numbers that are generated. So this is the reason that we're getting different numbers every time you refresh it. You know, like try doing it in your code and make sure that every time you refresh, you get a new set of values. Okay. So, okay. Now we have called the function to print the array of the numbers. Let's do it for the names as well. So it's going to be easy. Just write document.write and you say traversing names in order. Just give a line break. Don't forget the semicolon, okay? And then you just call the function print array names and save it. Now let's go and see the changes, and you can see the way we had created our array names, the same way it has been printed. Okay, so this is how you can traverse this is how you can first create arrays, then you have to write the function of printing the array, and then you call the function so you can finally display it. Now let's try and okay, we have done this. Now what we do is, let's move on to the other functions that we have to write. Like we have to traverse the array in the reverse order, calculate the average, find the largest number, and create a bar. So let's go through all of this step by step. Okay, so over here, if you come, you have to print the array values in the reverse order. So why don't you do one thing? Pause the video over here and try to code it out on your own. It is the logic is the same as how you do it for traversing the array in the same order, only with a very slight difference in how you have the start, end, and the step size which you have in the for loop. See over here in the for loop, you start with 0 and end at I is less than a of length, and you go I plus plus. Now this time you have to start from backwards and you have to decrement. So, you know, I've given a bit of a hint of how to do it. So pause the video, try to code it, and then come back and see if you've done it right. Even if you're not able to do it, it's okay. I'm going to explain how we can traverse the array in the reverse order. Okay. So again, we will write function and give it a function name. I will just give it a print reverse, and then we will send an array. Let's name it A. Okay. Now we have a for loop. So we will write for loop. Now this time the variable I will start from the end of the array, which will be a dot length minus 1. Okay. Remember why we do minus 1, because over here, when you name the arrays, the indexing starts from 0. Okay. So when you have an array of length 5 and the indexing starts at 0, so the last index will be 4, right? So that's why we need to do minus 1. Okay. So you have I a dot length minus 1, then I is greater than equal to 0. Okay. It will go on until I is greater than equal to 0, and over here you will decrement it. So I minus minus. Now inside this, again, you'll write the same thing. You just have to write document dot write, and you just have to display the ith element of the array. Okay. And after this, we can just give line breaks, document dot write. So okay, so we'll give a line break here. Okay, done. So with this, we have now two functions. One is to print the array values in order, and the other is to print the array values in the reverse order. Now what we'll do is, let's just go and see if our function is even working or not. So let's try and calling the function. So traverse array in reverse order. Let's give an output of here. Let's write document dot write traversing names in reverse order. And don't forget the semicolon. and write print reverse array. Okay, and we will do the same thing here. We will write document dot write traversing names in reverse, sorry, not names, traversing books owned in reverse order. Okay, and oh wait, I did a mistake. The names is not given in that, it is given in the names area. So don't mess don't confuse the names. Then you write print reverse and then array, and let's save it and let's see if it is working. Okay, so if you can see, you have this as the traversing books owned in one order, and this is the reverse order, and it's come as it should have. And this is for the names in the order, and this is in the reverse order, and it has come correctly. Let me just make some change and shift this go down, so it will be easier to compare. Let me save this. Okay, yeah. So traversing books in order, then traversing books owned in reverse order, then this names in order, names in the reverse order. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we'll write a function to find and return the average of the array values. Okay, so let's write a function for this too. We'll write the keyword function, then we'll give a function name find average and pass in the argument any array A. Okay, inside of that, let's create a variable called sum and give it an initial value of 0. So basically this will store the value of the sum of all the values, and then eventually, as we know that average is always the sum divided by the number of elements, which is basically the array length. So this is where the sum variable will be used. Now, in order to find the sum, obviously, again, we will use the concept of loop. We will use a for loop which starts from 0 and ends at a dot length, and it increments by 1. And what it does is it tries to update the value of the sum at every iteration. So let's write that. We'll write for, and we'll create a variable I which starts from 0, and then we will write it goes on till a dot length and then I plus plus. And then we will update the value of sum. So we'll write sum equal to sum plus the ith element of the array with a semicolon. Now, once we have the sum and once it iterates through the entire array, we will find the average. So we'll create a variable var average, which will be equal to sum divided by the a dot length. And remember, we have to return the average as well. So we will write return average. So again, just to repeat how to make the average function, we will have a variable called sum, which we will initialize to 0. Then we will use a for loop to update the value of sum at every iteration. Then we will find the average value by taking the sum and dividing it by the length of the array. Now the average has been found. Let's try to call the function and display the output. So finding the average of array values, over here I can write document dot write, and then inside that I can write the average of the books owned in the array is, then I can just call the function, sorry, yeah, I can call the function find average and pass in the array and also a semicolon, and then just add some line breaks. So I'll write document dot write line break. So I have saved this, and let's go and see if the change is there. So you can see the average of the books owned in the array, and you can see the amount that is displayed over here. So that's how easy it is to write a function to find the average. Now what we can do is we can do the next function, which finds and returns the largest element in the array. So for this, again, we will create a function. So let's write function and then the function name find largest index, and then pass in an argument which will be an array A, and we will have two variables. One is the variable large, which will be the first element of the array, and one will be the large position, which is basically the position where the largest number is. So initially we will give the large number as the first element in array and also the position as 0. Now what we will do is we will create another for loop which will go through all the elements in the array and check if the large value is less than the array variable that we are at, then the large value is then updated to the new array element. So we'll have the for loop with variable I equal to 0, then I is less than a dot length and I plus plus. We will check, so we need an if loop, if statement where we will write if array of the ith, if the ith position of the array is greater than large, then we will update the large value to a of I, and the large position will also be updated to I, and then eventually we will return, because we just need the index to be returned, we will return large position. All right, so to repeat, what we've done is we have two variables, large and large position. Large is basically the largest number and large position is the position of the largest number. Both are initialized as array equal to 0, that is the first element of the array, and the position is 0. We will iterate through the entire array and see if the ith element of the array is greater than large. If that is the case, then the large variable is updated to a of I and the position is also updated to I. Now let's try to print this. So we are going to print the largest number and the person who has that number. So what we will do is we will use a variable where, which will have the returned element of the function, which is largest index of array. Then we will have a variable largest, which will store which element is the largest. So basically where will have the index of the largest element. So basically the variable where is the index. Now we'll create another variable largest, which will save the value of the largest position. So array, when we do array of where, it is basically array of the index, right? So it will give us the value of the largest number. Okay, then we can just display it. So we'll write document.write the largest number. Okay, spelling is wrong. The largest number of books owned is, and then you call, and then you say largest, like you want the largest value to be displayed, and then you have a line break. Okay, and then you can display another, you can display the position also. You just have to write who okay, we forgot to do one thing. We have to find out who owns that book also, right? So we will need another variable who, where it goes through the names array where the names are there, and gets the name. So when you write names of where remember where is the index actually. So when you write names of where, suppose the where value is 2, so it will find names of the 2, matlab it, in the sense that it will find the second element in the array. Okay, so we can print who also owns the most books. So who plus owns the most books. Okay, and oh, I did a mistake here. The code shouldn't have been here. Yep, right. And just write a few line breaks. Okay, so let's save the code and let's see if this runs. I have, okay, so the largest, obviously, if you see, these are the number of books owned, and over here the largest number is 92, right? So the largest number of books owned is 92, and if you see, 92 is the second position, which is Mary, and it says Mary owns the, we just need to put a space here, and that will fix the code. Yeah, so now 98 is the highest and Paul owns the most. So that is how you can find the largest number in the person who has that number. Now the last thing that is left to do is you have to print bar graph by the values in the number array. So for printing the bar graph, you have to again use a loop, and let's try to do that. So we can write document dot write bar graph display of books owned by each person with a line break. Okay. And a semicolon. After this, let's create a for loop. So for variable I, which starts from 0, then I, the length is the length of the array, and then I plus plus. Okay, this will help us print the name. So we can write document dot write names, that is the ith name, plus we need a line break. Also the number, that is the number of books owned by the person, then a space. Now after this we need to display the bar graph, so we will be using stars to display the bars, to show the length of the bar. So we will have a for loop where we have a variable star, and it starts from, let me write variable star, it starts from 0, and then you have to make sure the star is less than the ith value of the array that is there. Okay, and star plus plus. Then after that we will write document dot write, and the star element is printed. And then in the end, let's just write a line break. So we have this. Now let's save the code and try to run it. And when we run it, we can see we have the name, the number of books owned, and the same amount of stars. And the same is done for all the names over here. So with this, actually, we have written all the functions that are needed, along with understanding how to create the arrays, then print the arrays, that is, write the functions, and also call the functions. So now, yeah, with this, we've come to the end of the recitation. So the link of the quiz form is over here. So kindly fill it to be marked for attendance. Thank you, and I'll meet you in the next one.